You can learn a lot. You can learn a great deal about a person by examining the contents of their inbox on any given day or week. The items that populate one's inbox can provide insights into their interests, their passions, their affiliations. For instance, individuals with an affinity for shoes or clothing are likely to receive numerous advertisements showcasing sales and promotions from their favorite stores. Those who are politically inclined are likely to have their inboxes flooded with opinion pieces and attention-grabbing headlines highlighting various political crises and events. Sports enthusiasts will find themselves receiving updates on trade rumors, speculations, the latest news, even during the off-season. And for rabbis and cantors, such as myself, I'm not a cantor, I'm a rabbi, I'm clearly not a cantor, my inbox is often filled with Torah commentaries, articles on Israel and various Jewish news, events, and headlines. And while some of these subscriptions are curated material, others come directly from you, my congregation, who often ask for my thoughts and opinions on a variety of Jewish topics. And I appreciate this effort to provide me with relevant content, although I must admit that I sometimes struggle to find the time to thoroughly read and respond to everything. But thank you for the homework. Recently, multiple individuals in our congregation forwarded me 2 different articles that at first glance seemed completely unrelated. However, upon closer examination, I discovered what I think is a common thread worth exploring together tonight. One group shared a link to an NPR segment discussing Jewish summer camps. This 4-minute story delved into the intentional origins of this uniquely North American Jewish experience. Now, as someone who attended a Jewish summer camp myself and possesses, I think, a bit of a knowledge of North American Jewish history, I was grateful for the heads up about this particular piece, and I was even delighted to discover that the author of the book that I have been very, very slowly reading every night was featured as a subject in the interview of the piece. Furthermore, knowing that Tova, who is having her bat mitzvah tomorrow, as we've mentioned a few times, along with the whole Jaffe family, shares a love and appreciation for Jewish summer camp, in particular, URJ Camp Kalsman, where our families will be heading this summer, it seemed like an apt topic for tonight's discussion. The second article that many of you shared with me focused on the opening of a new Holocaust Museum in Toronto. Surprisingly, despite being the home to one of the world's largest Jewish communities, Toronto did not have a dedicated Holocaust Museum until recently. And this new museum is specifically aimed at educating young leaders who will inherit a post-survivor world. It represents a departure from traditional Holocaust museums as it aims to fill the generational void left by the absence of survivors. Jewish summer camps and Holocaust museums. What connects them, and why should that matter to us? First, North American Jewish summer camps. They emerged relatively recently within Judaism. Since our tradition is about 3,500 years old, that's fairly easy to say. The idea of Jews engaging in camping activities was abandoned by many Jews soon after Joshua led the Israelites across the Jordan River at the end of the book of Deuteronomy. After spending 40 years living in tents in the desert, the idea of rustic life became a generational trauma, to be sure. Moreover, for Jews who had resided in the shtetls of Eastern Europe or the bustling cultural centers of the Middle East, the notion of seeking solace in nature was antithetical to their desires. They longed for modern amenities, not more camping, such as running water and paved streets, not to mention indoor plumbing. However, after World War II, when Jews had more opportunities to assimilate and become part of the broader American Jewish culture, Jewish summer camps emerged. They emerged as an immersive space for preserving Jewish culture. Sandra Fox, the professor at NYU, whose book is very slowly being read on my bedside table, wrote in her book, The Jews of Summer, chronicling the expanse of these camps during the mid-20th century. And she wrote, according to her, that the Holocaust had just happened, and American Jews were incredibly anxious about the future of Jewish culture and Judaism as a religion. North American Jewish summer camps then became a way to hold on to and rebuild that heritage. The idea was to take the typical American or Canadian summer camp with its archery and color wars and dining halls and campfire songs and make it reflective of what Jews wanted their future to look like. These camps sought to create a unique form of Jewish tradition. Bunk names and activities were connected to stories from Israel's founding. Similar to how other summer camps incorporated narratives from indigenous cultures, talent shows and featured Hebrew versions of popular songs, and color wars became Maccabiah, complete with obstacle courses inspired by the Israeli Defense Forces. Group experiences and simulations formed the foundation of these camps, emphasizing the idea that being Jewish entailed a distinct identity, a blessing and a curse, to be learned, accepted, and celebrated. And I recall vividly, even in the 1980s, being awakened in the middle of the night to reenact an escape from Nazi Europe. How many of you went through these simulations in your summer camp, right? A departure from the usual camp color war, for sure. We were handed papers that we had to carry around all the time and transported via rowboat in the dark, then in the back of a windowless van, where older kids pretended to be the police, shining flashlights in our faces. And if it wasn't Nazis that we were fleeing, then it was the KGB, and we were becoming refuseniks, Soviet Jews striving to reach the promised land, or Israel, or in the camp setting, the very next best thing, which would have been the canteen for soda and candy bars, truly a land flowing with Milky Ways and bit of honey. These dramatic reenactments always concluded the same way. After indulging in our sugary treats and reuniting with our bunkmates who had either been deported or captured or, God forbid, murdered by the Nazis, we would gather in a large hall on our pavilion to listen to an actual survivor of the concentration camps or a Soviet refusenik who had miraculously escaped. And this was the second set of emails you sent me. This is where it comes into play. The ones about that new Holocaust Museum in Toronto. For the first time since the Holocaust, we are faced with the need to build museums that preserve a story that no living person experienced firsthand. That time is here, very soon. Dara Solomon, the museum's executive director, explained, "From the very beginning, our goal was to create a space where we could continue to hear from survivors long after they're gone. The museum's curators made a conscious decision to downplay the graphic and horrifying imagery commonly associated with the Holocaust museums that we grew up with, or my summer camp experience. In the new gallery dedicated to the atrocities, some materials, such as images of mass killings in pits on the outskirts of town, are stored in drawers that viewers have to and must willingly pull out to view." Solomon stated that we deliberately chose not to use incredibly graphic imagery that I grew up with because we know that students don't learn as effectively when they're terrified. And if you make them sad and you scare them, the learning process shuts down. I only wish they had discovered this when I was at summer camp and they woke me up in the middle of the night to the shouts of, "The Nazis are coming! The Nazis are coming!" However, the fundamental question remains: what is the role of these two core and foundational institutions, the Jewish summer camp and the Holocaust Museum, in what is, I think, a fully assimilated Jewish diaspora that has transitioned into a post-survivor era? That's us. What do we and our children need to ensure that we not only remember our past, but also experience a vibrant and inspiring Jewish present and future? We require Jewish summer camps like Kalsman and Miriam and Hatikva and Schechter, camps that are not mere museums of the past, nostalgic replicas of defunct kibbutzim that no longer exist even in Israel. Instead, we need these camps to serve as laboratories for Jewish innovation in music and art and prayer, social consciousness, and deep interpersonal relationships. It's not sufficient to have Reform camps and conservative camps and Orthodox camps and Zionist camps. We need Jewish camps that bring all of those streams of Judaism together, uniting them into a powerful river that is teeming with Jewish life and vitality. And likewise, We need Holocaust museums and education centers that can translate a story of, look what happened to us, into a narrative of, it can happen again. It can happen to you if we forget. In the absence of survivors who can physically roll up their sleeves and show us in ink and flesh the depths of human cruelty, our museums and education centers must use contemporary atrocities and inhumanities as a mirror, revealing how such horrors originate. And then, pulling open the drawers, we can see the process and, if left unchecked, the unfathomable consequences. I have always believed that if we could replicate what we do at camp within the synagogue, Judaism would thrive. In addition to museums that mourn the tragedies of our people that we have endured, we should build museums that celebrate our accomplishments and our contributions. Only then can the phrase "never again" truly be realized. And we need one more thing. We need Jewish students like Tova, who love being Jewish, and Jewish families like the Jaffes, who model an authentic and intentional blend of Jewish values and modern life. Tova, your bat mitzvah this weekend signifies much more than just your personal journey. It encompasses the essence of who you are and what your family represents, a wonderful, proud, and joy-filled Jewishness. You are the product of a Jewish summer camp that seeks not to dwell in the past for meaning, but to find inspiration in the future. Judaism and Jewish values are woven into every aspect of camp life, from the ropes course and the climbing tower to the art room, the dining hall, and the campfire circle. And your father serves on the board to make sure it is so, and your mother's as an educator to make sure it is learned. And Tova, your bat mitzvah is a celebration not only of Jewish survival, but also of Jewish flourishing. The survivors of the Shoah have borne witness to the fact that the Nazis failed. You, your family, this congregation represent a new chapter in the story of the Jewish people, a story that is not defined by terror and suffering, but by pride and joy and endless possibilities. Tova, the story you and your family are writing is not a history book looking backward. It is a vision of our future, boundless as the stars. And tonight, Tova, you're our guiding light. Shabbat Shalom.